chapters of Dhammasaṅgaṇi. We are coming to the contents of the Dhammasaṅgaṇi, that is the 4 chapters of Dhammasaṅgaṇi. In a brief manner, we will discuss that how the treatment of the Dhamma in the form of Chitta, Chetasik, Rupa and Nibbana, they have been displayed in the 4 chapters. The first chapter is called as Chittupadkanda. Second chapter is Rupakanda. Third chapter is Vikepakanda. And fourth chapter is Athudvarakanda. There are 4 chapters in Dhammasaṅgaṇi. In the Chittupadkanda, as the name says, there are 3 terms here: Chit, Upad, and Kanda. Kanda means chapter. Chit means consciousness. Upad means energy. So Chittupadkanda is a chapter in which there is the description of arising of the consciousness. So we have already discussed that the treatment of the Dhamma in Dhammasaṅgaṇi, they have been done on the basis of Tikmatika, Dukmatika and Sutartamatika. So first of all, in the Chittupadkanda, the 22 Tikmatikas have been displayed. As for example, first of all, there is a Kusal Tik. So out of the 22 Tikmatikas, Kusal Tik is first, Vedana Tik, and Vipaka Tik is the third one. So first of all, the first Tikmatika is called as Kusal Tik. Now this Kusal Tik, there are 3 questions: Katme Dhamma Kusala, Katme Dhamma Abhyakata, Katme Dhamma Kusala, Katme Dhamma Abhyakata. So here Abhyakata has come in the second, but it should be third. Katme Dhamma Kusala, Katme Dhamma Kusala, Katme Dhamma Abhyakata. Now these 3 have been discussed on the basis of planes of existence. That is the Bhumi, that is the Kamavachar Bhumi, Rupavachar Bhumi, Arupavachar Bhumi and Lokuttar Bhumi. So all the Kusala, see Katme Dhamma Kusala, there are altogether 21 types of consciousness which are called as Kusala. Out of the 89 types of consciousness, we consider 121 types of consciousness. Then the number of the moral consciousness or Kusala Chitta will be 37. So now the Kusala Chitta, now there is a question, Katme Dhamma Kusala. Now it starts that Yasmin Samame Kamavachare Kusalam Chittam Upannam Hoti Tasmin Sumay असो होती, वेदना होती, संज्ञा होती, चेतना होती, एकाग्रता होती, तम समुत्थानम, काय कर्मम, वची कर्मम, मनोकर्मम. These have been discussed. So now there is a question in the Chittupadkanda on the basis of the planes of existence. That is the Kamavachar. Now in the Kamavachar, how many are the consciousness which are called as moral? So there are 8 types of Kamavachar Sahetuka Chitta which are called as moral. So 8 types of Kamavachar Sahetuka Chitta which are called as Mahachittani, they have been displayed first of all. Then Rupavachar Chitta, then Arupavachar Chitta, then Lukuttar. All the 21 or 37 types of Kusala Chitta, they have been displayed on the basis of our planes of existence, that is the Bhumi, Kamavachar, Rupavachar, Arupavachar, Lokuttar. After that, there is a Katme Dhamma Akusala. How many are the consciousness which are called as Akusala Chitta? So now, Kamavachar, there are 12 types of it: Lobh Mulaka, Dosh Mulaka 2 and Moh Mulaka 2. They have been displayed on the basis of only Kamavachar. Because Akusala Chitta is available only in Kamavachar. After that, it comes to our plane Abhyakata, Katme Dhamma Abhyakata. Now the term Abhyakata is very critical term, and whenever we are talking about the ethics term, it is in the sense of Vipaka, resultant of the moral and immoral actions, and Kriya Chitta, that is the inoperative consciousness. But in the suttas, the term Abhyakata has been discussed in different manner. There are 10 types types of Abhyakat Pahiyu, which have been discussed in Uttapad Sutta, and whether this the world is eternal, the world is not eternal, the world is finite, the world is not infinite, the body and the soul are the same, body and the soul are different. Tathagata takes birth before, after the Mahaparniman. Tathagata does not take rebirth after the Mahaparniman. This type of they are discussed in the form of question and answers. And these questions are not going to solve any problem. So that is why it is called an Abhyakat Prasna. But here, when we are discussing in the form of our ethics, that is in the case of Dhamma, it is Abhyakat is in the sense of neither moral nor immoral. That is, it does not have any inoperative consciousness. So whenever there is a Vipaka Chitta and Kriya Chitta, they are included under the Abhyaka Chitta. Again, the Vipaka Chitta and Kriya Chitta, if you see Vipaka Chitta are 56 out of 89 and 52 out of 121 types of consciousness. They have been discussed in Chittupadakanda on the basis of planes of existence. Kamavachar, which are 23, Rupavachar, they are 5, Arupavachar 4, Lokottar 4 or 20. So they have been discussed under the headings of Vipaka Chitta of the Katme Dhamma of Vyakata. Then Kriya Chitta, which are 20 in number, available only in the Kamavachar Bhumi, Rupavachar Bhumi and Arupavachar Bhumi. They have been displayed on the planes of existence. So Chittupadakanda discusses the arising of the consciousness. How there is the arising of consciousness. Whenever there is the arising of any consciousness, there is an action also. So if you see the course of cognition, that is the Chitta Vritti, in the Dhammasaṅgaṇi, which has been discussed also, how the objects are being cognized by our consciousness or the mind. There are 10 stages like Bhavanga Chalana, Bhavanga Vicheta, Panchadvara Vajjana, Chakku Vijnana, Sampatichana, Santirana, Utthappana, Javana and Tadalamana. There are 10 stages through which the objects are being cognized by our consciousness or by mind. So there is another thing. So we are discussing here in the Chittupadakanda that how the moral and immoral actions and the inoperative consciousness, they are arising. So all the 89 or 120 types of consciousness, they have been discussed in Chittupadakanda, that is the first chapter of our Dhammasaṅgaṇi. Whenever we are talking arising of the consciousness, Chetsikas are also discussed here. Chetsikas we have already discussed that Chittam Sahajata iti Chetsikam. Whenever there is a arising of any consciousness, there is the arising of sacking factor also, Chetsikas, which are arising, sitting on the same object and on the same base also, and they are always associated with consciousness. So whenever there are 89 or 121 types of consciousness in the form of kusala, akusala and abhyakata, that is the vipak and kriya chitta, there are also chetsikas which have been discussed. That is Katme Dhamma Kusala, Yasmi Samane Kamavachare Kusalam Chittam Uppannam Hoti, Somanas Sahagatam Yan Sampayuttam Asankharikam, Tat हर्षो होती, वेदना होती, चेतना होती, एकाग्रता होती, like these are the psychic factors which are also discussed there, along with all 89 or 120 types of consciousness. There is an interesting thing that in Dhammasaṅgaṇi, first chapter, there are 56 types of Chetasikas which have been discussed here. But in Aniruddha Abhidhammasaṅgaṇi, we are having only 52 types of psychic factors. But Dhammasaṅgaṇi discusses 56. There are more than 52. There are 4 which have been reversed by later acharyas in the form of 52. So these 52 types of or 56 types of psychic factors, they have been also discussed as a Anisaman Chetasika, then Akusala Chetasika and Soban Chetasika. So whenever there are discussion on the Kusala Cheta, the Soban Chetasikas are also discussed here. So there is a association with the consciousness, there is the arising of the psychic factors with the consciousness, they have been also discussed. So in the Chittupad there is a 89, there is an enumeration of 89 or 121 types of consciousness on the basis of 22 Tikmatikas. We are discussing only Kusala. After Kusala, the Vedana comes. Then Vipakatik comes. Then Sankalit. There are 22 Tikmatikas which are displayed. So in the Chittupadikan, if you see, there are more than 50 pages which are discussing about the arising of the consciousness, which are discussing about the Chit and Chit. Chitsika, that is the consciousness and the psychic factors. Second chapter is called as Roop Tand. That is, Roop means Chattaro cha Mahabhuta Chaturnam cha Mahabhutanam Upadai Idam Puchati Sapam. That here Roop is in the form of 4 Mahabhut and 23 types of Upada Roop, generated material quality. In Dhammasaṅgaṇi, there is no any concept of Aday Roop, that is Aday Vatu. It is the concept of later Acharya. There is a discussion that why in Dhammasaṅgaṇi Aday Roop has not been included. So when we have in the introduction in the last just now, we have discussed that when Buddha was saying that subject manata, all things are subject to impermanence, and in defense of that he prescribed or he established a theory of law of dependent origination, and how this universe and a human personality is functioning. He prescribed the 4 ultimate realities in the form of Chitta Chetasika, Rupa and Nibbana. Then how he can say that there is a permanent entity in the root, in the form of Aday. Whenever there is a concept of Aday, it means that there is a concept of Atma also. So Buddha tried to avoid this concept of Aday Rupa in Dhammasaṅgaṇi. But later Abhidhammika Acharya, they have established this Aday Rupa as a Aday Vatu. And Aday Vatu, the role of Aday Vatu is just like it becomes the base of arising of the Manodhatu and Manoviyana Dhatu. Manodhatu are 3 in number and Manoviyana Dhatu are 76 in number. Altogether 76 and 3, 79 types of consciousness and Dvipanch Viyana, that is the twice-fold consciousness which are available in Kama, Vachar and Hetuka Chitta, that is the Kusal and Akusal. So altogether there are 59 types of consciousness which are available in our. So this has been discussed in our Rupakanda. Rupakanda discusses only 27 types of material qualities, 4 Upada Rupa, 4 Mahabhut, Patri, Apo, Tejo, Vayo, and then 23 types of Upada Rupa which have been discussed in under the 11 headings. एक विधेन रूप संग हो, 2 विधेन रूप संग हो, 3 विधेन रूप संग हो, 4 विधेन रूप संग हो, till एकादश विधेन. How the Rupa has been classified under the 11 ways. These have been discussed in the 3rd chapter. First of all, there is a definition question, Tat Katavam Sabbam Rupam. Then there is an answer that Chattaro cha Mahabhuta Chaturnam cha Mahabhutanam Upadai Idam Bhujati Sabbam Rupam. So there is an answer of that, and then what is the Pathavi, Apo, Tejo, Vayo? These have been discussed. There is a definition at that what is the Pathavi Patvi, that Kakhar Gatam, Kakhal Bhavoti Patvi. That Patvi is having the characteristics of hardness. So Patvi, Apo, Tejo, Vayo, and then all the 23 types of Upadarup, they have been discussed under the Rupakanda. So if you see Rupakanda, that how the we have seen here that how the in the Chittupadakanda they have been discussed under the Kamavachar 54, Rupavachar 15, Rupavachar 12, and Rupavachar 14. All they have been discussed on the basis of Kusala Tit, on the Kusala Tik, Vedana Tik, Vipaka Tik, all they have been discussed there. Coming to Rupaka, this is the Chetsikas which are rising and ceasing of consciousness along with the consciousness, and they have been Aisavana Chetsikas 13, Akusala Chetsikas 14, and Sovana Chetsikas 25. So altogether, the Dhammasaṅgaṇi, the first chapter discusses about 89 or 121 types of consciousness in the form of Tikmatika and Dukmatika. They have been displayed there in a brief manner because they are in the form of Matika. So this is the first chapter, and second chapter, if you see that second chapter is called as Rupa, and in the Dhammasaṅgaṇi, when in the first chapter, after the description of the 22 Tikmatika, there is a Kuthasvar and Sunyatavar. In Kuthasvar, there is a enumeration of 22 Tikmatika for the sake of just remembering of all 22 Tikmatikas and 100 Dukmatikas, and Sunyatavari is also remembering all these Tikmatika and Dukmatikas. And then the second chapter, which discusses about the 27 types of material quality. So Rup is the translation of Rup is form and object. There are so many translations, but it has been translated in the Indian context, which are suiting to our Indian mind. It is material quality. Each matter has its own quality. If you see the grass or the leaves of the tree, they are also having the quality of greenness. So in that sense, all matter is called as material quality. Each, whether it is a Patvi, Apo, Tejo, Vayo, and other 23 types of Upada Rup, they are having the quality. Each matter has its own quality. Even Kai and Vachi. A person has the quality of the masculinity, or a female has the quality of femaleness. So this is the quality of Purush Indriya or Iti Indriya. So in that form it is called as material quality. So in the Rup Kand all they have been discussed, and there are two ways of enumeration of Rup Dhamma in the third chapter, that is the Uddeshanaya and Nideshanaya. There are two ways of the treatment of the Dhamma, that in Uddesh there is just enumeration of the states, and in Nideshanaya there are explanation of those states or the terms which I have discussed in the Rup. So we have discussed that there are 11 ways. एक विदेन रूप संघ हो, दो विदेन रूप संघ हो. There are 11 ways of the roop enumeration in the Rupa Kanda of Dhammasaṅgaṇi, and they have been discussed in a very detailed manner. There are 40 pages which are discussing about the Rupa Kanda in 11 ways. So this is the our Rupa Kanda, the second chapter of Dhammasaṅgaṇi. So in the Rup, there is establishment of 11 Mahatika in the so एक within the Rupa Sangho, that it is called as Rup is called as Hetuk Anarambanam Sankata Sankata, not Asankata, Sankata, because it is devoid of all the phenomena, that is it is not dependent on cause and conditions. It is dependent on cause and conditions. That is why Rup is called as Sankata. Sankata. Anarambana, that the rope is already object, it cannot catch the object. Only the senses have the quality of catching the object. So this is the ek vidhina rupa sangho. Then do vidhina rupa sangho, that it is the taroja mahabhuta and upadarup. So rope is of two types by the way of mahabhut and upadarup. So there are three ways of rope. So they have been discussed in the light of our 11 ways. All the 27 types of material qualities, they have been discussed there. So here, as for example, how we in the Nirdesana, the Rupa has been enumerated, or the term of related with our Panchvidhina Rupa Sangho, like has been shown on the Mahabhut. As for example, Katmam Rupam Patvi Dhatu. What is called as Patvi Dhatu? That Yam Kakhalam Kakhargatam Kakhalatam Kakhal Bhavo Ajhatam Va Bahidda Va Upadinam Va Anupadinnam Va Idam Tam Rupam Patvi Dhatu. So this is the definition. It is by the way of Nirdesana. So in the Uddesana, there are only enumeration of the types of the rope. That is, this is the Patvi, Apo, Tejo, Vayu. They are called as Mahabhuta. But in the Nirdesana, they have been explained each and every term which have come in the Rupa Kanda. Again, in the Katmam Rupam Patvi Dhatu, this is the again Tejo Dhatu, Vayo Dhatu, and what are the Upada Rupa? In Chakhayatanam, Sotayatanam, Dhanayatanam, Jivayatanam, Kayayatanam, Manayatanam, like that, Kablikaro, Aharo, Idam Tam Rupam Upada. So this is the Nirdesana, the enumeration of the Dhammas which have come in here. So this is the Rupa Kanda. All the 27 types of material qualities they have discussed in the Rupa Kanda, that is the second chapter. All the 27 types of material qualities have been discussed. Now there is the third chapter which is called as Nikhep Kanda. Nikhep means Sankhep, that brief. The chapter which gives the brief description of the 22 Tikmatikar, 100 Tikmatikar, and 42 Sutantamadikar. They have been enumerated here in the Nikhep Kanda. Some of the scholars say that the Nikhep Kanda was introduced later on. If you go through the P.V. Babat Dhammasaṅgaṇi, published by Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, P.V. Babat says that Nikhep Kanda is the last chapter, because at the end of the Nikhep Kanda, it is said that Nichito means here there is the end of all the ultimate reality, Chit, Chait, Rup and Nibbana. And Atudwar Bandal has been added by Abhidhammikas later on in the Buddhist councils or after the Buddhist councils also. So this is the Nikhep Kanda, that is the very important, because this is the chapter which gives the brief description of all the three ultimate reality, Chit, Chait, Rupa, in the first chapter, in the second chapter of Dhammasaṅgaṇi. In the first chapter and the second chapter, we do not have any description of the fourth ultimate reality, that is the Nibbana. But in the Nikhep Kanda, the Nibbana has been discussed in the form of a Sankata Dhatu. That is the Dhammas which are not dependent on some cause and conditions. They are in the form of apachaya. They are, Nibbana is called as a apachaya because they are not dependent on any cause and conditions. So that is the niceties of the Nikhep Kanda, that it throws a light on the Nibbana, that is the fourth ultimate reality, because in the first two chapters we do not have any description of the our Asankata Dhatu, that is the Nibbana. So first of all, there are 22 Tikka starting from the Kusala Tikka, Vedana Tikka, Vipaka Tikka, Sankalita Tikka, which are our subject of matter discussion. We'll start the text from there. So this is the brief enumeration of all the Dhammas. So the treatment of the Dhammas, namely Chitta, Chetsik, Rupa and Nibbana, they have been enumerated in the Cape Kanda on the basis of the Tikmatika, which are 22 in number, and there are altogether 66 angles or the Matikas which have been discussed in the Nikkep Kanda. First of all, in the form of Tikmatika. After that, there are 100 Dukkamatika, which have been classified into 13 sub-chapters. They are called as Gochakas, Chulantar Dukk, Mahantar Dukk, Chulantar Dukk and Pithi Dukk. There are 3 Dukk and there are 10 Gochakas which have been discussed under the 100 Dukkamatika. We'll come to this point if you see that in the Nikkep Kanda, the Tikmatika, because this is our subject of discussion, so we'll discuss all these things. But after 22 Tikmatikas, there is the enumeration of 100 Dukkhamatikas. And after 100 Dukkhamatikas, there is a enumeration of 42 Sutanthamatikas, which are based upon the Sutantra. Why there is a need of Sutantra here? So, how Buddha has said about all these Chitta, Chetsik, Rupa and Nibbana in the Suttas, the Acharyas are remembering and they have been put in the form of Matikas in Dukkamatika, which are 42 in number. Katme Dhamma Arana, Katme Dhamma Sarana, Katme Dhamma Chitta, Katme Dhamma No Chitta. So like these questions they have been put in the Sutanthamatikas. So how the Chittas they have been discussed in the Suttas, now they are remembering, and how the Chittas they have been discussed here. All the technical terms like Katme Dhamma Nama, Katme Dhamma, Chitta, Katme Dhamma, Chetsika, all they have been put for memorizing what they have been discussed in the first chapter and the second chapter. So they have been discussed in the Nikkep Kanda. The last chapter is called as Atudwara Kanda here. If you see that in the Atudwara Kanda, and how in the Dhammasaṅgaṇi that the first Tikmatika, which starts as a Kusala Tikka, there are 3 questions: Katme Dhamma Kusala, Katme Dhamma Akusala, Katme Dhamma Apyakata. So first question is Katme Dhamma Kusala, Tini Kusal Mulani, Alobho, Adoso, Amoho, Tam Sampayukto, Vedana Kando, Sanya Kando, Sankhar Kando, Vyan Kando, Tam Samuthanam, Kai Kammam, Vachi Kammam, Mano Kammam, Ime Dhamma Kusala. So this is the Dhammasaṅgaṇi, which discusses about in a very brief manner. Here Nikkep Kanda, it has been given in a very brief manner. But in the Chittopad Kanda, if you see that how the 22 Tikmatika, the first Tik, Kusala Tik, which starts from Yasmin Samaye Kama Vachare Kusalam Chittam Upannam Hoti Somanas Sahagatam Yan Sampayuttam Asankhar Chittam Upannam Hoti Tas संज्ञा होती, फसो होती, वेदना होती, संज्ञा होती, चेतना होती, एकाग्रता होती. Like that, there is a enumeration. There are more than 55 pages which are discussing about only 22 Tikmatikas and 100 Dukkhamatikas in the form of, in the way of Bhumi planes of existence, that is the Kamavachar, Rupavachar, Arupavachar and Lokuttar. But here it is in a very brief manner for memorizing by the Acharyas that what is Kusal, what is Akusal, what is Abhyakata. They have been given here. So we will discuss one by one how they have been enumerated in Chittopad and Gopakan by in blessed one Buddha. So this is the Dwar, last chapter in the Dwar. There are 2 words, At and Dwar. Dwar means door or entrance. At means meaning. The meaning of the technical terms which have not been defined in like Chittupad Kand, Rupa Kand, and Nikhep Kand, they have been discussed in a very detailed manner in the Athdwar Kand. Suppose here in the Kusalatik Katme Dhamma Kusala. So here in the Chittopad Kand, if you see that there is a detailed enumeration of the Kusalatik 31 or 37 out of 121 and 21 out of 89. But here it is said Chatusu Bhumusu Kusalam Kusala Dhamma Kusala Dhamma Hoti. Just one line it has been given. Chatusu Bhumisu. In the Chatusu Bhumisu means in Kamavachar, Rupavachar, Arupavachar and Lokuttar. In the four planes of existence, altogether there are Kusalachit which are 21 or 37. So these technical terms which have not been given in a detailed manner, the technical terms like lobh, dosa, moha, which have not been defined, alobh or dosa, moha, the technical terms, they have been defined here in the fourth chapter. So this Athdwar Kanda also discusses about the 22 Tikmatikas, 100 Dukkamatikas and Sutantramatikas. So they have been elaborated in the last chapter of Dhammasaṅgaṇi. So here it appears to difficult and it appears difficult to understand the Dhamma without exposition of these points, and therefore this chapter has been appended. So it is a later interpolation or in later added by the Abhidhammika Acharya. The nature of this chapter is the Matika, which has been explained clearly in the cave Kanda, and it is easily understood by all, has very briefly been described here. So how it has been said in the form, in the answer of the question of Katme Dhamma Kusala, that Chatusu Bhokshi Kusalam Kusala Dhamma Hoti. Just one sentence has been given here. So for instance, the first portion of the first Tikmatika is very clear in the Cape Kand, and therefore it has been described in Atudwar Kand in a very brief manner. So here Katme Dhamma Kusala Chatusu Bhumisu Kusalam Ime Dhamma Kusala. From this it can be seen that in the Cape Kand the exposition is bigger, but here it is smaller. However, the Vedanatik, which is second Tikmatika, is not clear in the Cape Kand that how many are the pleasant feeling, how many are the unpleasant feeling, how many are the feelings which are indifferent to Upekha Vedana. They have been not made it clear in the Cape Kand, but it has been made clear in that how many are the consciousness out of the 89 types of consciousness, which are the consciousness which are called as Somanasa Vedana, Dukha Vedana, and Upekha Vedana. They have been made clear here. Thus, the Atudwar Kand takes into consideration of the 100 of Dhamma Matika. It presents a brief and detailed exposition as is stated above. So, let us stop here. If you have questions, can I go ahead or?
Yes, sir. We
Yes.
have 50 minutes, so if you
Okay,
want,
then.
then we can continue. Yeah.
After, I think
After that, we'll.
we have discussions also.
Sure.
So now we are coming that how the treatment of Dhamma, that is the Chitta, Chesik, Rup and Nibbana, they have been given in Dhammasaṅgaṇi in the form of four chapters. So here we have already seen that Dhammasaṅgaṇi is a text which is called as which discusses about man in suffering and the things which are surrounding with the personality of a human being. This is called as Dhammasaṅgaṇi. So Dhammasaṅgaṇi text is also called as a text of psychology and ethics. So Dhammasaṅgaṇi discusses the mind, that is the Chitta and Chetasika. So here mind is in the form of Chitta and Chetasika, which have been discussed in the first chapter, and it also discusses that how man is a human personality. So Chitta, Chetasika and Rupa, which has been discussed in the second chapter, that in the that form it is called as and how a man is associated with the suffering. As we have already seen that our consciousness is immense pure by nature. Pakati ko vasaramidam chittam tamchokho agantuke hi utkilese hi utkilitam. That our consciousness is immense pure. It is being defiled by incoming inward defiling factors. So whatever the consciousness of a small baby which has immense pure, but whenever the human beings are becoming young, our mind is polluted with the lobha, dosa, moha and others. And whenever we are free from all these impurities, which are devoid of all the impurity, then our consciousness becomes pure. And that is why it is called as Chitta Sankilesa Sankilesanti. And Chitta Bodhana Parisujjati. That whenever the consciousness is free from all the defiling factors, there is a state of Nibbana or a state of eternal bliss. These has been discussed in our Dhammasaṅgaṇi, all these tales, and we also see that how the nature of the consciousness which has been discussed on the basis of planes of existence, and nature of the consciousness has been also discussed in our Abhidhamma, and it is said that our consciousness is fickle. It does not stay at one place. It is unsteady. It moves from one place to another place within a single moment of time, and it is compared. The consciousness is compared with the simile of a monkey, also in Sanjukta Nikaya. Just like a monkey moves from one branch of the tree to the another branch of the tree within a single moment of time, in the same manner, our consciousness also moves from one planes of existence to another planes of existence. And in that way, we are having the Kama Uchar Bhumi, Rupa Uchar Bhumi, Arupa Uchar Bhumi, and Rupattar Bhumi. For the purification of our consciousness, we are having the four stages of our purifications in the Kama Uchar Bhumi. We control our consciousness, and in the Rupa Uchar Bhumi, we are controlling on the basis of our five factors of concentration, that is the Dharangas, and we are removing the five factors of hindrances, that is the Kamachanda, Vyapad, Dindit, Udat, Kukuch, and Vichikitsa, and then we are having the Arup Samadhi, and after that we are having the Lokuttara. So there are four stages which are given for the purification. So let us discuss about all these things which we are going to discuss about. So now in the Nikhepakanda, we are going to discuss all these things about the chapters we have already discussed: Tupadikanda, Rupakanda, Nikhepakanda, and Adhudvarakanda. So we have given the, now we are coming to the Nikhepakanda, which is our main discussion of our text. So we are going to discuss that how there is a treatment of Dhamma, how Chitta, Chetasik, Rup and Nibbana, which have been enumerated in the form of 22 Tikmatikas, 100 Dukmatikas, and 42 Sutantramatikas. So first of all, there is a treatment of our Tikmatika. And in the Tikmatika, we are having three questions, starting from the Kusalatik, Vedanatik, Vipakatik. If you see that all they have been discussed here, and there is a here Nikhep is also in the sense of heap or rasi or aggregate, where the dhammas which have been put in the form of heap or aggregate, like Kusala Dhamma, Akusala Dhamma, or Vipat Dhamma, or Kriya Dhamma, or Kriya Chit, they have been put in the form of 22 Tikmatikas. So this is the enumeration of all these, our 22 Tikmatikas. Coming to this our Dukmatikas. which are 100 number, and each Dukmatika has two portions. So altogether there are 200 angles or visions in the Dukmatika, and they have been classified under the Gochakas. There are 10 Gochakas, and there are three headings like Julantar Dukha, Mahantar Dukha, and Pitti Dukha. So let us discuss all these things in a brief manner. So Sri, that Gochakas are it is in Pali, but in Hindi or in Sanskrit it is called as Gachaka. That is the Gucha, that is the when the cluster of flowers are put. So when the different flowers from the gardens are plucked and they are put in the form of a bouquet, then it is called as bunchlet of flowers or bouquet of flowers. In the same way, the problems related with any dhamma, they are put in the form of one group, one cluster, one gochakra. Then it is called as gochakra. Like first of all, it is called as hetu gochakra. The problem related with the gochaka, hetu, that what is hetu, what is not hetu, what are the dhammas which are associated with the hetus, and what are the dhammas which are not associated with hetus. When the problems related with the hetus, they are put together in one cluster or group, this is called as hetu gochaka. Each gochaka are having the 6 dukmatikas, and altogether there are 12 questions or angles or visions of the gochaka. So these have been discussed here. Like Fufu Gochaka, the Matikas are also dealing with the problems of our. So this is there are 3 Chulantara Dukha, Mahantara Dukha, and Pithi Dukha. After the Hetu Gochaka, that is after the 12 types of angles or visions, there are Chulantar Dukha, there are 6 small Matikas which are discussing about the concept of Nibbana. That is the Asankata Dhatu, Katme Dhamma, Asankata, Katme Dhamma, Sankata, Katme Dhamma, Pachaya, Katme Dhamma, Apachaya, Katme Dhamma, Arammana, Katme Dhamma, Anarammana. Like these, the Matikas have been discussed here. So there are 6 Dukmatikas which are discussing in the Chulanta. There are 2 words, Chul and Antar. Chul means a small, Antar means a gap. In between the 2 Gochakas, there are some Matikas which have been discussed in the small gap. That is why it is called as Chulantar Dukh. And after that there are Mahantar Dukh also, and after that there are Asab Gochaka, Nivaran Gochaka, Sanyojan Gochaka, then Yog Gochaka, Og Gochaka, Kilesh Gochaka, Upadan Gochaka. There are 10 Gochakas are discussed there. And before the Upadan, there is a Mahantar Dukh, in which there are the Matikas, which are big in number, and there is a gap in between the Pithi Dukha and the Kilesh Gochaka. So they have been discussed in the Mahantar Dukha. And they are discussing about all the, that what are the dhammas which are called as Nam, Rupa, Chitta, Chetasikas, like they have been discussed in Mahantar Dukha. And lastly, there is a Pithi Dukha. Pithi Dukha is the supplementary diets or supplementary questions which are also called as Dukmatikas. They have been discussed. And based upon this Pithi Dukha, Acharya P.V. Bapat concludes that this is the last chapter of Dhammasaṅgaṇi, and Athudwar Kanda has been appended by the letter of Dhambika, and he has discussed in the introduction of Dhammasaṅgaṇi, edited by Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute. So this is in the treatment of how the Dhammas have been discussed in the Epakanda. So each Gochakas are discussing 6 Dukmatikas. So in each Gochak there are 10 Gochakas. So altogether there are each Gochakas are having 12 portions. So altogether there are 120, and the remaining 80 questions out of the 200 questions, some have been discussed in the Chulantarduk, some have been discussed in the Mahantarduk, and some Duk Matikaj have been discussed in the Pithi Duk. So this is the treatment of our Duk Matika. If you see that how they have been enumerated, the 100 Duk Matikas. So first of all, Hetu Gochaka, then there is a Cholantara Dukka, then Asava Gochaka, then Sanyojan Gochaka, then Gantha Gochaka, Voga Gochaka, Yoga Gochaka, then Nivarana Gochaka, then Paramasa Gochaka, then after that there is a Mahantar Dukka, then Upadana Gochaka, Kilesa Gochaka, and lastly there is a Pithi Dukka. So all the 100 Matikas, they have been classified under the 13 headings. So this is the 13 headings through which the 100 Matikas have been displayed in the Nikhepakanda. So this is the treatment of the Dhammas, that is the Chitta Chetsika Rupa and Nirvana, how they have been displayed in the Nikhepakanda. Before this 100 Matikas, there is the establishment of 22 thick Matikas in a very brief manner. They have been put there and questions have been asked, answer have been given. After that, hundreds of Matikas have been discussed. So in Kepakan discusses Sutanta Matikas also, and each is, there are 42 Sutanta Matikas, and each Sutanta Matikas have two questions, that is the Dukha Matika. Altogether there are 84 types of Sutanta Matikas or angles or visions through which the ideas have been taken from the suttas related with the Chitta, Chetasik, Rupa and Nibbana. So Sutanta Matikas are meant for such persons who are well versed in Sutanta tradition and they like to study Abhidhamma. In the Vinaya, we are having the reference in the Chulamaka that some of the persons who first of all reads Sutantas or Suttas, and after that he reads Vinaya and then Abhidhamma. And there are some of the bhikkhus who reads Abhidhamma first, then Sutta, then Vinaya. So there are traditions available at the time of the Buddha also, in which there are traditions, but here the Nikhepakan, the Sutanta Matikaji has been established for the sake of the persons who have first read Suttas and then they wish to study Abhidhamma. In that way, there are 42 Sutanta Matikas they have been put here. So for easy access domain of Abhidhamma by method of Sutanta, there is establishment of the Sutanta Matika. So 42 Sutanta Duk Matikas appear to be a later addition. Some of the Acharyas do not consider that these Taj are the original one in the Dhammasaṅgaṇi. They are also of the opinion that they might have been added by the later Abhidhammika in the third Buddhist council or after the third Buddhist council till 1st century BC. Because in the Milinda Pahino, we are having the first of all description of all the 7 sects of Abhidhamma Pitaka. So this is the opinion of some of the scholars that these 42 Sutanta Matikas have been added later on. So first because they properly belong to Sutanta method of treatment. Secondly that the last section of Abhidhamma Matika, Pithi Dukha, the last set or supplementary set, a name which indicates that one time it formed the last section of the text. So thirdly, because the fourth division of the book Dwarkan, which event tradition admits to be a later edition, gives no explanation of the same. In this way, there is a treatment of Dhamma, that is the four reals, that is the four ultimate realities, Chitta, Chetasik, Rupa and Nibbana, and the basic points of Abhidhamma in the Dhammasaṅgaṇi. So in that way, Dhammasaṅgaṇi is called as a book of psychology and the ethics, because it discusses about the mind in the form of chitta and chetasik, and it discusses about the moral and immoral actions, that is the kusala chittas, vipaka chittas, and kriya chitta. And in this way, what is the resultant of the moral and immoral actions, how the vipaka chitta are responsible for a person in taking birth. These have been discussed, and in that way, this book, Dhammasaṅgaṇi, is called as a book or text of ethics also. So this is the treatment of Dhamma which have been discussed here. So let us stop here, and there is still time. And if you have a question, you can ask the questions. I will be glad to answer all these questions. Thank you.
Yes, so first I should give the opportunity to online participants. Yeah, so if anyone have any question, any compliment, if you would like to add some point here, you are welcome. Please unmute yourself and ask your questions. Anyone? Yes, please. Yes, yes, please.
Can you repeat the question? It is not audible. Can you make it louder? Yes, yes, yes. Hmm. How to see the?
How to understand this chapter? Means, as she is saying, these all component divided into different, the numbers,
Hmm.
Dukmatika and Tikmatika. So how to understand this chapter?
So Niket, you are asking about the how the things can be understand in the Dhammasaṅgaṇi.
You can type the question.
Yeah,
You
you
can
can
ask
type
her to
it.
type the question.
Because here the markas are small in form. Like example, we have given that Katme Dhamma Kusala, Katme Dhamma Akusala, Katme Dhamma Abhyakata. There are three portions. If you see on the screen, you will see that here it is given only Katme Dhamma Kusala, Tini Kusal Mulani, Alobho, Adoso, Amoho, Tam Sampayuto, Vedana Kando, Senya Kando, Sankhar Kando, Byan Kando, Byan Kando, Kam Samuthanam, Kaya Kammam, Vachi Kammam, Mano Kammam, Ime Dhamma Kusala. Now we have to discuss in this chapter that what are the three immoral, what are the moral hetus, that is the alobho, adoso, amoho, and how the kusala chitta, which is associated with the three types of hetus, that is the alobha, adosa, amoha, and how the consciousness, which are 89 or 121 types of consciousness, or 52 types of psychic factors, how many are the psychic factors which are associated with our kusala chitta, that is the associated with alobha, dosa, moha. So we'll discuss, explain in the chapter again, because these are here in the form of matika. So we'll discuss with the help of chitta, chetasik, rupa and nirvana. how they have been displayed in the first two chapters. It is not possible to go through all the Chittupad Kand and Rupa Kand in a very detailed manner because the Chitta Chetsik Rupa they have been discussed in a very detailed manner. But here we will discuss that how many are the consciousness which are associated with our Kusala Chitta in the form of in the stages of Kamavachar, Rupavachar, Arupavachar and Lokuttar. So we have to give here in the explanation here. So we will discuss, this is the main subject of our course of this Dhammasaṅgaṇi. So we will discuss again all these things. So it is not mentioned here, but if you go through the Nikhetkan, it is only in the small brief manner here. Is it clear now? Any more question? Any of you
If you have any question, anyone, please
Yes.
ask. Or maybe, sir, you have a better option. You think on that, whatever sir today he has discussed about that, the structure of the Dhammasaṅgaṇi, how this Dhammasaṅgaṇi meaning and importance of that. So maybe you can write all questions and send to the email. And tomorrow, before starting class, we can take your all questions.
in the chat box also we can
Yes,
send
yes.
it.
And so today is the first class of the first session, and of course we are going to learn a very, you can say, difficult, section of the Buddha's teaching. Of course, it's not easy to understand because if you see the mechanism here, the 22 Dugmatika and again the 100 Matikas, Dugmatika and Tigmatika 22. So in that way, these all we see the dhammas are enumerated. So it's really very difficult to understand. As Lakshmi Kanta she asked this question. So of course still I have a questions also. Here,
Yes.
what is the intention behind of that? Why only 42 matikas are there in the Suttanta section? So of course we can discuss slowly if we go through the chapter, we will start, and these all questions which we have slowly can be clear about that. So I'll suggest to all of you, those are online here. If right now, if you have any doubt, please ask your question. Otherwise, as I mentioned, you can write your question to email, and the sir can take these all questions, and tomorrow we can discuss about that. Now here offline, do you have any questions? Yes, Chetan, please come here. Please ask. Which is loudly, I'll say थोड़ा सा behind mic भी I'll arrange it because today's mic is also not functioning well. Yeah. ठीक है, बोलिए.
My question is that is there any description regarding the defilement? And other question is that is there any different view regarding the Cheta between the Mahayana tradition and Theravada tradition?
So first question is whether there is a description of kleshas or not. In the Dhammasaṅgaṇi, which we have just discussed, that 100 Dhammasaṅgaṇi they have been discussed in after the 22 Dhammasaṅgaṇi in the Nikhetkan. So they have been discussed under the 13 headings also. So first is the Hetu Koshaka. After that there is the Sulantar Tuk. After that there are some defining what you are asking. So kilesas or the defining factors are in Sanskrit it is called as klesa, but in Pali it is called as kilesa. Kilesas are those states which are darkening or blackening our consciousness, that which are associated with lobha, dosa, moha or other defining factors, which are, we have just discussed that by nature our consciousness is immense pure. Pakati pavasaram idam chittam tam chakho agantukehi utkilesehi utkilektham. Our consciousness is immense pure. It is being defiled by incoming inward defiling factors. Kilesas. It is the kilesas. Kilesas are the immoral states which are associated with the Lobha, Dosa, Moha. And if you go through that all the 13 Gochakas, there is a heading of Upadan Gochaka, and then Kilesas, they have been discussed here in a very detailed manner. So Kilesas are available, but not in the form of what you are asking in the Mahayana. We are having the concept of Kilesas here. So all the Chitta Chaitasic, Rupa and Nirvana, they have been discussed there in another form, not in the Kama Avsar, Rupa Avsar, Lokuttar, but they are here in the Klesas, Klesas and Kusalas or Akusalas. So Klesas are there also. So some of the Chaitasikas which have been put in the Klesas here. But in Mahayana, there is another traditions. But in Theravada traditions, we are having only four ultimate reality, that is the Chitta Chaitasic Rupa Nibbana. In Mahayana, our Sarvastivada text, we are having Yogachar, Sarvastivada, Abhidharma text, which differs from our interpretation of our. The main thing is Chitta Chaitasic Rupa Nibbana. We have been also discussed in Theravada, but the interpretations or the divisions of the states are different. Okay? Is it clear? Yes.
So I think
Any more questions?
here,
Whenever.
sister, come here. Maybe you can ask your question loudly from your seat, if possible.
So he says Dhammasaṅgaṇi is called Mula Makarana. Then how we compare look like Vimanga and Yamaka remaining six book Prof to consider Dhammasaṅgaṇi as Mula Makarana.
Yes.
This is how we connect.
Yes.
Yes.
So tomorrow I will discuss you along with this, because whenever we are telling about Dhammasaṅgaṇi is the Mool Pakarana, and why it is called as a basic text, then we have to give a description of Bhanga, Dhatu Katha, Ukalpayanti Katha, Vatu, Yamakan Patha. How Matika has been discussed in the technical Vibhanga, in the text Vibhanga, and how in the Dhatu Katha we are having the dhatus that which are 18 in number discussed. So how the matikas which have been discussed in the 20 Tik matikas, 100 Dukha matikas, how they have been put in the Vibhangas. So I will discuss first of all tomorrow. I will discuss in a very brief manner the six remaining texts, Vibhanga, Dhatu Katha, Pugalpayati, Katha, Vatu, Yamak and Patha. And then considering all that, how Matikas have been placed in remaining six texts based upon the Dhammasaṅgaṇi, and based upon the Dhammasaṅgaṇi, how they have been established in the form of Matika in other six remaining texts. So we will discuss tomorrow, because we will take time, because all the 18 Vibhangas, how they are considering the 22 Tik Matikas and 100 Duk Matikas. So I will come tomorrow and I will discuss in a very quick manner, not in a detailed manner, because each Vibhangas has its own chapter and it is had more elaboration also. So in a brief manner we will discuss the how Vibhanga, Dhatu Katha, Garpayanti, Kathavatu, Yamak and Pathan, they are based upon the Matikas of Dhammasaṅgaṇi, and how Dhammasaṅgaṇi is called as a Mool Pakarana. We will discuss tomorrow. Thank you. Dhanavad,
Sister,
yourself.
please.
Sister.
Ask your question a little loud. Yeah, you can come here.
You can come here.
It's better. Okay, please. Yeah, please.
Yes, come here, come here.
Yes, please ask.
Yes, yes.
So can you explain the term chitta in Dhammasaṅgaṇi with the term chitta in Buddhist tradition or the Buddhist tradition?
In Buddhist tradition or in Dhammasaṅgaṇi? Achetayiti di chetana. That which thinks of an object is called as our consciousness. That is the chitta. But in Dhammasaṅgaṇi, in the first chapter, Chittupadikanda, it starts from the Kusalatika. That Katme Dhamma Kusala. And in that it is that Katme Dhamma Kuru, Yasmin Samaye Kama Vachare Kusalam Chittam Upannam Hoti, Tasmin Samaye Somanasa Sabgatam Yan Samsalitam Asadharikam Chittam Hoti. Thus, हस्सो होती, वेदना होती, चेतना होती, एकाग्रता होती, मनसिकार होती, all the 7 types of sabchitta sadharana chetasika, they have been written there. And then kaya samuthanam, vachi samuthanam, and mano samuthanam, all the physical, vocal and mental actions, they have been performed. But there are so many definitions in chitta, there are synonyms in other traditions like in Abhidharma. Chitta has been also discussed with the manasa or vijnana. In Yogachar tradition, Vigyan has been compared with the chitta of the Dhammasaṅgaṇi. Whatever we are having the concept of chitta and chetasik here, in the Vigyanavad it is considered as a consciousness, that is the Vigyana. So Vigyan is that Vijanaditi Artho. That whenever a person knows the object, that this is the rupa, sadha, gandha, rasa, potamba, and dhammayatan, this is called as vijnana. And here in Vijnanavad it is said that only the mental things are available, not other dhammas. But in Madhyamik traditions, the chitta has been compared in the form of consciousness also here. But it is not in the form of whatever. But in Sarvastivada Abhidharma, whatever we are having in the Abhidharma course by Acharya Vasubandhu, the concept of chitti is also manasa. We are having here only 6 types of consciousness, like Chakku Biyan, Sot Biyan, Khan Biyan, Jiva Biyan, and Kai Biyan, Mano Biyan. But in case of our Sarvastivada Abhidharma, there are 8 types of Vijnana. There is a 6 Vijnana, Chakku Vijnana, Sot Vijnana, Ghan Vijnana, Jiva Vijnana, Kaya Vijnana, Mano Vijnana, then Pravritti Vijnana and Klist Mano Vijnana. There are 8 Vijnanas are available in Sarvastivada Abhidharma traditions, and they have been elaborated in a very detailed manner. So here, whenever we are comparing with the Klist Mano Vijnana as well as Pravritti Mano Vijnana, we have to find out that how Klist Mano Vijnana and Pravritti Vijnana have been discussed in our Theravada traditions. So if you consider Klist Mano Vijnana, the concept of Bhavanga, what we are having in the Bhavanga Chitta, in the Theravada traditions, Klist Mano Vijnana can be compared with our Klist Mano Vijnana. So in the case of Pravritti Vijnana, we are having the Sankharas, which are 3 in number in our Theravada traditions, Punya Visankhara, Apunya Visankhara, and Anija Visankhara, which are the resultant of the moral and immoral actions in the form of chittas. So Avijja Pachaya Sankhara, whenever we are saying that the sankharas or mental dispositions are dependent on avijja, ignorance, and they are classified on the basis of consciousness, Punya Visankhara, Apunya Visankhara, and Anija Visankhara. They can be compared with the Pravritti Vijnana, that is the resultant of our moral and immoral consciousness. So we have to compare it. There are some of the things or technical terms which are not exact clear, but we have to make it compare. So in the Theravada traditions we are having only 6, but in Sarvastivada Abhidharma traditions there are 8 types of Vijnanas. Klist Mano Vijnana and Pravritti Mano Vijnana. They are added here, but they are analyzed here in different manner. Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
So I also have what to
Yes.
ask later.
Yeah, maybe we can ask Kumar.
Yes, yes.
First one
same and difference between content, scheme, look like how they put the Chitta, because the content they mention the same for ultimate reality. But what Abhidhammasaṅgaṇi or Visuddhimagga, they adopt the content here and develop later. Please, sir, give more detail about that.
Yes, we will discuss because see, these are the seven texts of Dhammasaṅgaṇi and Dhammasaṅgaṇi is the Mool Prakarana. But these, if you go through the volumes of Dhammasaṅgaṇi, Vibhanga, Dhatu Katha, Ugal Payanti, Kathavasthu, Yama and Pakkhana, they are voluminous also. And it is not possible for a monk or any lay person to go through all the volumes. So later on, there were manuals on Abhidhamma text, and there are 9 lessons which are called in Burmese also. Lessons means they are the manuals or compendium on the 7 texts of Abhidhamma. So Abhidhammasaṅgaṇi, Nam Rup Pariched Katha, then Paramat Vinishya, then Satyasaṅkhepa, Abhidhammasaṅgaṇi. There are 9 texts which were written by later Acharyas, Abhidhammic Acharyas. They are called as manuals of Abhidhamma, and they have been written on the basis of the 7 texts of Abhidhamma. So anyone who does not have time, but they can go through the ultimate reality, that is the Chitta, Rupa and Nibbana. So Abhidhammasaṅgaṇi, which was composed by Acharya Aniruddha in 11th century AD. So it was called as a classical manual of Abhidhamma text. So all the which have been discussed in the Dhammasaṅgaṇi in the 4th chapter, 18 Vibhanga in the Vibhanga text, Dhatu Katha, Ugal Payanti, they have been summarized. They are called as lessons manual. That is the manuals written on the 7 texts of Abhidhamma. So anyone can go through the ultimate reality, Chitta, Rupa, Nibbana. So in Abhidhammasaṅgaṇi there are 9 chapters. And on the 9 chapters, all the Chitta, Rupa, Nibbana, they have been discussed in a very brief manner. So anyone can go through and they can read the 4 ultimate realities, what they have been discussed in 7 texts. So this is the difference between, so manual is only for going through the niceties of the Abhidhamma, that is the Chitta, and Rupa, Nibbana, in a very brief manner. And this Dhammasaṅgaṇi, Vibhanga, Dhatu Katha, they are discussing all the ultimate realities in a very detailed manner. So this is the difference, that anyone who is interested in a very brief manner, they can go through the manuals, whether it is Namrup Pariched or Paramat Vinishya, Satyasaṅkhepa, or Abhidhamma Avatar by Acharya Siddhartha. There are 9 manuals which are written. And it is interesting that on Abhidhammasaṅgaṇi there are many commentaries which have been written. And Abhidhammat Vibhavani Tika by Acharya Sumanga, which has become very famous text. And later on there were some sub-commentaries which were also written on Abhidhammasaṅgaṇi by like Dharmanand Goswami, Abhidhammasaṅgaṇi Navneet Tika, that is a butter commentary or essence commentary which has been written by Dharmanand Goswami. So many sub-commentaries have been also written on Abhidhammasaṅgaṇi.